بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له كان الله ولا مكان فهو الآن على ما عليه كان فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال ولله المثل الأعلى تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود وعن الحركة والسكون وعن الاتصال والانفصال لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء لأنه ليس كمثله شيء مهما تصورت بذلك فالله لا يشبه ذلك ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين هاديا مبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه أما بعد فنذكر أنفسنا بإخلاص النية لله تعالى I praise Allah, I glorify Him and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated, and I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and to protect his Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne and He is not attributed with fatigue like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed seeking the acceptance of Allah only and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah that we have been guided to Islam, because it is the greatest endowment. And we are grateful to Allah that we have been granted access to the authentic knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the knowledge of the saved group. And so we are following the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam because we have that information. So we're going to continue on, inshallah, with achieving a more perfect prayer. Just to recap for the prayer, because we finished the purification, and so then we started with the prayer. So to summarize what we have mentioned so far, so we have for the intention, saying the intention with the tongue before the opening takbir. Now keep in mind, when we mention these recommended matters, we're not forgetting the integrals. So we've covered the integrals many times. So going straight to the recommended matter, and it should be understood without leaving out the integral. So for the intention, it's saying the intention with the tongue right before saying Allahu Akbar to begin the prayer. So that's one of the sunnahs of the intention. And adding to the intention, this is within the intention, adding to the intention that one is praying for the sake of Allah. And so that would be for the perfect intention. I now intend to pray the obligatory, let's say someone said, for example, I now intend to pray the obligatory Dhuhr prayer for the sake of Allah, or humbling myself to Allah, or worshipping Allah, and having the ultimate humbleness and humility. And so remember, the reward of the prayer is proportional to the amount of khushu' that you have, and we're going to mention the khushu'. It's going to come. For the opening takbir, the imam, he says the takbir out loud in all prayers. So it's a sunnah to say it out loud. The opening takbir obviously has to be said, that's the integral, but then when transitioning from, let's say, after reciting al-Fatiha, after reciting a surah, saying Allahu Akbar when transitioning to the ruku', when transitioning to the bowing. To say it out loud for the imam, he says it out loud, because it's sunnah to say it for those transitions. Saying it is not an integral. Yani saying it for the transitions is not an integral. So that's what is mentioned here for saying the takbir. Then for the one who's praying alone and the follower, yani the one who is following the imam, so he's praying in congregation, he says the takbir softly in all prayers. So he's following the imam, and it's sunnah for him to say Allahu Akbar when he transitions, even though it's not an integral. Then raising the hands during the takbir, we mentioned to raise the hands with the palms facing the qibla and the fingers extended and slightly spread until the hands are next to the shoulders. That is, the fingertips are adjacent to the top of the ears. So these fingertips are adjacent to the tops of the ears, and the thumbs are adjacent to the earlobes, and the palms are adjacent to the shoulders. And so you begin raising them when you start saying Allahu Akbar, and you finish raising them when finishing the opening takbir. Now you'll find in some books they mention the different sayings that you say Allahu Akbar and you finish before, or that you finish at the same time. but these are okay. But the one that's mentioned here is ending. You're saying Allahu Akbar as you're placing your hands where it's sunnah to place them. So basically you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, but with the right position. This is just because I'm holding the mic. Allahu Akbar. Then he says, for the placement of the hands while standing, so you place the right hand over the left hand, grasp the left wrist, the right hand over the left wrist. He says, grasp the left wrist and some of the left forearm with all the fingers of the right hand, or with the thumb only extending the rest of the fingers along the exterior of the left forearm toward the left elbow. And I've never done it like that, but this is the way that I know. Now some people, and they do something where they move it like a little bit to the left so that supposedly it could be closer to their heart. I've never heard of there being any origin, any basis for that. It's down the center between the navel and the chest, and then it says, place both hands under the chest and above the navel, so not up here. Here is not correct. And in the Shafi'i school, letting them dangle down and below the belly button, that's also not correct. The Shafi'i school, it's in the middle. Is there a visual there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Then he says, opening dua, recite the opening dua in a low voice in the first rak'ah only. So there's many narrated opening dua, and saying like even like the short one of them, you'll get the virtue of doing that in a perfection. It'll be like, it'll be categorized like you fulfilled that, at least that virtue at least, and you get the sunnah for that. But of course it would not be to the degree that it would be the degree of perfection if you said the whole thing. We mentioned that before, وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ حَنِيفًا مُسْلِمًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And you can also say سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ تَبَارَكَ اسْمُكَ وَتَعَالَى جَدُّكَ وَلَا إِلَهَ غَيْرُكَ. And also you can say اللهم باعد بيني وبين خطاياي كما باعدت بين المشرق والمغرب اللهم نقني من خطاياي كما ينقى الثوب الأبيض من الدنس اللهم اغسلني من خطاياي بالماء والثلج والبرد. These have very beautiful meanings, by the way. I'll get into some of it. So وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, and it means that I have directed my face, literally, but of course in worship, because we're facing the Qibla for the prayer. And this will be while inside the prayer. So this is not a dua before the prayer, it's inside now. You're inside the prayer. And all these dua and dhikr, they give the extra meaning, or the one who dwells on them and he really is present in them, they really motivate for humility and humbleness. Because as we're going to mention near the end, that's what the prayer is. It's like you're showing with your physical actions and movements specifically to show that you worship Allah and that He's your creator and He's your Lord and He has authority over you. It's a very deep meaning. So I turn myself to, and in worship, I turn myself to the worship of the one who created the heavens and the earth, as someone who has the pure religion, Hanifan, as someone who has the pure religion, no idolatry, worshipping the Creator only, Musliman, a reiteration, that has the pure religion, a Muslim, وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, and then a negation of idolatry, and I am not among the idolaters. It's more than a mantra, it's an affirmation of the truth. This is what, and also for the prayer, one of the things that show the truthfulness and the greatness of Islam is that this is exactly how to worship the Creator, and this was ordained by the Creator of the universe. إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And he's stating a fact. Indeed, my prayer and my, let's say, the rituals of the Hajj or the sacrifices, the slaughterings, and my life and my death are owned by Allah, the Lord of the universe. Allahu Akbar. The one who understands that and thinks that and is thinking of that meaning while they're praying, they would feel the great humbleness and humility of that. They would have the khushu'. La sharika lah, again affirming that He has no partners with Him in Godhood. وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ, and with that I was ordered, with that I was commanded. وَأَنَا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, that an affirmation that I am among the Muslims. MashaAllah. We'll mention some other ones another time. Then is sunnah to say al-isti'adah. This is a very emphasized sunnah, to recite it in a low voice in every rak'ah, before reciting al-Fatiha. But in the Shafi'i school, mostly emphasized in the first. It is extremely disliked to leave it out in the first rak'ah. Extremely disliked. But it's less disliked to leave it out in the other rak'ahs. Al-isti'adha is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So this is how it would go. You say Allahu Akbar, the person will say Allahu Akbar with the intention, with the perfect intention, as they're raising their arms, and they end it when they say the final letter of Akbar and they have their hands in the proper position. Then they say the dua of opening the prayer, وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا مسلما وما أنا من المشركين إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين ومماتي لله رب العالمين, until the end, and of course in a serene way. And then أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, and then he starts to recite Al-Fatiha. So for reciting the Fatiha, it has to be done in every cycle. That's the integral. So the sunnah would be related to the loud or soft voice. The imam and the one who's praying by himself, he recites Al-Fatiha out loud during the loud recitation prayers and softly for the low recitation prayers. The loud recitation prayers are As-Subuh and Al-Maghrib and Al-Isha. and the soft are al-dhuhr and al-asr. And when we say loud recitation, we mean more than just making an audible sound, rather it being at a level where someone standing nearby could hear you. So that doesn't mean like shouting, just that somebody standing nearby could hear you. That someone else could hear you. And when we say softly, we mean that they just make the sound and not mouthing the words, and another person cannot hear them. That's for the Sunnah of the Fatiha. Recommended matters for now, for after Al-Fatiha to say Ameen. So Ameen is not part of Al-Fatiha, but it's Sunnah to say. Yeah.
So can you explain when the woman would be allowed to recite out loud, or when she shouldn't?
When she's by herself. The woman recites out loud when she's by herself, and there aren't marriageable men around.
And it's better for her to do that?
Yes. For the woman, when she's praying, if she's praying Maghrib or Isha or Al-Fajr, and there are marriageable men around, that she prays in a low voice, in a soft voice. So to say Ameen after the Fatiha, the Imam says Ameen after reciting the Fatiha loudly, in loud recitation prayers, and softly in soft recitation prayers. So the Sunnah for saying Ameen follows the Sunnah of reciting loud or soft for Al-Fatiha. In the loud recitation prayer, the Imam waits a moment equivalent to what is needed to say Subhanallah after the Fatiha to say Ameen. The follower says Ameen after the Imam's Fatiha loudly in loud recitation prayers. In the loud recitation prayer, the follower seeks to say Ameen at the same time the Imam says it. So there's an extra added like Sunnah, part of the Sunnah involved in this for the follower who's praying behind an Imam if it's a loud recitation prayer. So if they're praying Maghrib or Isha or Fajr and the Imam finishes reciting Al-Fatiha, it's Sunnah for him, extra Sunnah for him, to do a pause and then say Ameen. And it's an extra Sunnah for the followers in that loud recitation prayer to catch the Imam when he starts saying Ameen, so they're in sync, so that they say it at the same time in harmony. Because there's a hadith narrated about that when that happens, there's angels that seek forgiveness for those that they were in unison like that. So, and they say it out loud, so they all say it together, Ameen. So they shouldn't anticipate the Imam, and they shouldn't go ahead of him. They should take into consideration that Sunnah pause for the time it takes to say Subhanallah, so they could have the timing. So there's the timing is there.
And the woman shouldn't say it out loud to me in the presence of marriage.
I need to double check that. It says, recite a surah after the Fatiha. So the Imam and the one who's praying alone recites a surah other than the Fatiha after the Fatiha. It is recited in a loud voice in the loud recitation prayers and in a soft voice in the soft recitation prayers. So it's Sunnah for reciting that surah after the Fatiha, following the loud or the soft, following the Sunnah of the Fatiha. So if it's Sunnah to recite the Fatiha out loud, it would be Sunnah to recite the surah after the Fatiha out loud. The follower only recites a surah if he cannot hear his Imam's recitation. He recites it in a low voice in all prayers. So the follower, and he's allowed to recite another surah after the Fatiha while following the Imam in a loud prayer. He's allowed, but it's not Sunnah.
Unless they don't hear the Imam.
Yeah, unless they don't hear the Imam, right. That's also true. And it's not specific to the loud prayer, although that's when normally it would occur, where you would hear the Imam. But if they didn't hear the Imam, then they could recite out loud. And for different prayers, it's sunnah to recite certain surahs, inshallah. Maybe we'll mention that. We don't want to do like an overload. Now for the ruku', the perfect ruku', like we said, is 90-degree angle, with the legs slightly spread, keeping the back flat and level, placing the palms on the knees, spreading the fingers slightly and directing them towards the qibla. Raising the hands upon bowing when one says Allahu Akbar, and raising his hands like in the opening takbir. So when he's going to the ruku', he says Allahu Akbar, and he raises his hands like he did with the takbir. He says the dhikr, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, while bowing. 3 times is better, since it follows the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one may add at the end, wa bihamdihi, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, wa bihamdihi. And we mentioned in detail about the Imam with the known quantity of followers behind him. The Imam of the unknown quantity of followers does not exceed saying this dhikr 3 times. So if it's someone who is praying with an undefined number of people, it's not like a set number of people, then for him he suffices with saying Subhana Rabbi al-Azim 3 times. And the one who's praying alone, and the Imam of a known limited number of followers who agree to elongate the prayer, that's a condition. He can add to that dhikr, and he can add to Subhana Rabbi al-Azim wa bihamdihi 3 times to saying Allahumma laka raka'tu wa bika amantu wa laka aslamtu khasha'a laka sam'i wa basari wa mukhi wa 'azmi wa 'asabi wa mastaqallat bihi qadami. And one may add to the end of that wa sha'ri wa bashari. Then the i'tidal, raising the hands, and the dhikr. So raising the hands to the shoulders upon rising while saying Sami'a Allahu liman hamida, and reach the starting point when finishing raising the hands and saying dhikr. So Sami'a Allahu liman hamida, just all together in unison. So when the person is bowing, he starts saying Sami'a Allahu liman hamida, he's raising himself up. And he is raising his hands the same way like as the dhikr, like when he is saying Allahu Akbar, and saying that dhikr, which is Rabbana lakal hamd. So after reaching the starting point, and after getting to here, so he says Sami'a Allahu liman hamida, then he says Rabbana lakal hamd, or Rabbana wa lakal hamd, or Allahumma Rabbana lakal hamd, or Allahumma Rabbana wa lakal hamd. This is the addition of wa, and. And then you can also add mil as-samawati wa mil al-ardi wa mil ma shi'ta min shay'in ba'd. There's an additional dhikr for the lone praying person and imam of the non-limited followers that agree to an elongated prayer. أهل الثناء والمجد أحق ما قال العبد وكلنا لك عبد لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. And so we say, I'm also going to mention that later on when we get to the end, because there's things that it revolve around the prayer that it's not like it's specifically in the prayer. These are like within the prayer. But we're going to talk about how it's for the 5 obligatory prayers, it's a communal obligation to pray in congregation, in a masjid. So the ones who are living far away from masjids, or who don't have masjids in their regions, they're definitely missing out on a lot of reward, a lot of sunnah virtues. And imagine every single day being able to walk to the masjid, and you can say the dua of the masjid. MashaAllah. That is a blessing. That many Muslims, they don't But these are also part of the perfection of the prayer, to pray the prayer in the masjid. But also there's a scenario where you're not praying an obligatory prayer, you're praying a sunnah prayer. So you can implement these other sunnahs. Like when you're praying alone, for example, in the depths of the night, to say these long dhikrs. And so you see how the prayer can be, and it could take up the whole night. The awliya, a lot of them, they spent the whole night awake praying or doing other acts of worship. Inshallah, they have that strength and determination. So now there's one dua, or there's one sunnah that is specific to the Fajr prayer. So we have, when the person is praying the Fajr prayer, he would do these sunnahs like we're mentioning, and he would also, there would be a special dua that he says after he comes up from the ruku' of the second rak'ah. That's in the Shafi'i school. In the Shafi'i school, the dua of the Fajr prayer, it is after the coming up, the i'tidal of the second rak'ah. So this dua, this dua is Allahumma hdini fi man hadayt wa afini fi man afayt wa tawallani fi man tawallayt wa barik li fi ma a'tayt wa qini sharra ma qadayt innaka taqdi wa la yuqda alayk innahu la yadhillu man walayt wa la ya'izzu man hadayt tabarakta rabbana wa ta'alayt. And so sunnah, or to say this dua in the Fajr prayer. The Imam makes the dua in the plural, and the person who's praying alone, and the Imam of a limited jama'ah that agreed to the lengthy prayer, he adds to that. There's another dua that he adds to that, and the Imam says that out loud. Now for the perfect sujood, he makes takbir while descending without raising the hands. So when going down from i'tidal to the sujood, the hands are not raised. They're not raised, no. So verse says, Sami'a Allahu liman hamidah, Rabbana lakal hamd. And then he has hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fihi mil'a as-samawati wa mil'a al-ardi wa mil'a ma shi'ta min shay'in ba'd. And then he says, Allahu Akbar. He doesn't say Allahu Akbar and raise his hands. He just said Allahu Akbar. So the knees come first on the floor, spreading them a handspan apart, the feet. So anyway, you should stand like that from the beginning. A handspan is between the thumb and the pinky. So the distance between your feet when you're standing in the prayer should be that distance. I never heard it different for the woman. I'll go check it out. Then the uncovered hands. First the knees on the floor. So as you're descending, the way you're descending is knees first. Also spreading them a hand span apart between the thumb and the pinky. Then the uncovered hands adjacent to the shoulders. Extending the fingers towards the qibla without spreading them apart. So when they're flat on the ground, they're pointing towards the qibla. Then the forehead and the uncovered nose at the same time. Now what I took in Fath al-Wahhab is first the forehead, then the nose. But here they're mentioning at the same time. There's obviously different sayings. The feet are spread a handspan apart with toes directed towards the qibla, so they're like bent. The toes are like bent towards the qibla. while the feet are bare and not covered by the edge of one's clothes. Of course, that would be for the man, for the woman.
Like from his pants.
His pants or his thobe, or his robe, or his izar.
It shouldn't be long. Is that what?
For sure. So for sure, and it might come later on for the sunnah, and I was gonna mention anyways at the end. Like there's a sunnah way to dress for the prayer. So for the man to wear pants and to wear a thobe and to wear a shawl and to cover his head and to wear a turban. That's all part of the sunnah of the prayer. To put on perfume, that's all part of the sunnah. And so also the length of the thobe, that it's inside and outside the prayer, but inside the prayer, the person loses reward. The man loses reward when he's praying, and if whatever he's wearing, either his thobe or his pants, they're below the ankles. This is extremely disliked.
So you're saying if he goes to sujood and they cover his feet, then this also loses the reward ability?
No, I don't know about that. I'm just saying that's how I envision that their feet would be covered by their clothes, as that's very long. That's from the back. They'll be covered by the edge of his clothes. Like it will be draping over his feet from
Yeah, so
behind
in
him.
this scenario, it would be
Extra long.
disliked or not rewardable.
I mean, from the aspect of his thobe being longer than his, or beyond his ankles, yes. But for, let's say, if somehow it wasn't long, like below his ankles, but when he was in that position, it would drape over. I would need to ask about that. For the males, they lift the abdomen from the thighs in sujood, so they don't crunch in. And they keep the elbows apart from the sides of the body in sujood and ruku'. So they would have like their palms like at shoulder length, and then their elbows would be out with their fingers pointed towards the qibla. The females draw the abdomen towards the thighs in sujood and draw the elbows to the sides of the body in ruku' and sujood. They keep the body parts close together throughout the prayer. The dhikr in sujood to say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la 3 times. For the one who's praying alone and the imam of a known limited number who agreed to make the prayer longer or to make the prayer long, they say Allahumma laka sajadtu wa bika amantu wa laka aslamt sajada wajhiya lilladhi khalaqahu wa sawwarahu wa shaqqa sam'ahu wa basarahu بحوله وقوته تبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. And of course, it's sunnah to say things in odd numbers. The least of it is 3 for the least perfection or the minimum perfection. Then the takbir while rising to sit, to say Allahu Akbar while lifting the head without raising the hands. So when you're in sujood, when you're going to lift, the sunnah to say Allahu Akbar, but without raising your hands. I've seen some people do that. I don't know if that's even like a valid madhab in Ahl Sunnah. Then for sitting, we mentioned the style of iftirash, placing hands on the thighs near the knees so the fingertips reach the edge of the knee, extending the fingers towards the qibla without spreading them apart. So let's say this is the knee, and so the tip of the knee, and so the fingers would be like that and pointing towards the qibla and right at the edge of the knee. Then the dhikr in the sitting, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَارْحَمْنِي وَاجْبُرْنِي وَارْفَعْنِي وَارْزُقْنِي وَاهْدِنِي وَعَافِنِي. So this is a dhikr to say in between the 2 sujuds. After the second sujood, which is not succeeded by tashahhud, i.e. the second sujood that is immediately succeeded by standing, sit for a brief moment. So You go down, you make sujood, you say Subhan Rabbi al-A'la 3 times, let's say, as an imam, or the person that's praying alone, they say the extra dhikr. But the imam, he says Subhan Rabbi al-A'la 3 times, then he says Allahu Akbar. He sits between the 2 sittings, and he says Allahumma ghfirli wa afini warzuqni, or any of the narrations. Then he says Allahu Akbar again to make the second sujood. Then he says the dhikr again, Subhan Rabbi al-A'la 3 times. Then he says Allahu Akbar. Now what he's going to do, if he's in a transition where there's no sitting, so let's say he's going from 3 to 4 or from 1 to 2, he does a brief sitting. It's called the sitting of rest. So it's a brief sitting. So you're coming up, so you say Allahu Akbar from the second sujood, you come up, sit, and then you go up, and then you stand up. Use your palms against the ground to support yourself in standing up. So, and I wish that I had a visual, but basically when you're now you've come up from the second sujood, you've done the sitting of taking of istirah, the sitting of rest. So then you use your palm, now you're going to rise to stand. You use your palms to, I guess, support yourself in standing up. That's how you stand up. You lean back down, use your palms to help yourself.
Does it matter how the feet are or the legs are? But as long as you support yourself with your arms?
And it's like a reverse standing up. Like when you go down, it's knees first, then down, and so back. When you go back, it's like in reverse. Or like pushing yourself. I never heard that about the feet placement. I'll ask about that. Rising for the second cycle. When rising from the sitting of the first tashahhud to the standing position for the third rak'ah, raise your hands to your shoulders while saying takbir. This is a sunnah that other people have left out. Yeah, subhanAllah. It's almost as if it is extinct. It's almost as if it is extinct. So basically, you did the second rak'ah, you came from the second sujood, you're sitting for saying the tashahhud and the salatu ala nabi, as-salatu al-ibrahimiyya, and then now you're getting up to do the third rak'ah. When you're getting up to do the third rak'ah, you raise your hands like you do when you say takbir, like all the way up to the ears and back down. Now the style in all sittings except the last sitting is the iftirash. We mentioned that last time as well, and we gave a visual. So it's basically sitting on the left foot and ankle with the right foot out to the side with the toes pointing towards the qibla and the sole of the foot pointing immediately succeeded by salam. It is by sitting on the interior of one's left ankle while the exterior is pressed against the floor and the right foot is propped up, as is in sujood, by placing the undersides of the toes against the floor and pointing them towards the qibla. Inshallah, maybe we will show some pictures, like some depictions of that. For the last sitting is to sit in the style of tawarruk. It's similar to an iftirash, but it's, instead of sitting on the left ankle, one moves it, so it's like more on the inside, and then one sits on the left hip while keeping the right foot as it is in sujood. And the hands, we said, you place them on the thighs until the fingers reach the edge of the knees. The fingers of the left hand are not spread apart and are facing the qibla. The fingers of the right hand are in a fist, except for the index finger, which is extended towards the qibla. So, and it's like a fist. This one, I guess, is easy to show. So let's just say your hand is resting on your knee. So this is the shape, not like this. You don't have it closed like that. Have it like ready to lift up. You can see that, like that. And so you have it like this, like it's resting on your knee. And then when you get to illallah, you, at the same time that you're saying illallah, you lift it. And you lift it, and then you curve it. You let it curve. You don't extend it straight, and you don't move it around. In the Shafi'i school, this is definitely something you don't do. You don't move it around in circles. I know that in the Maliki school they have something about that, but I don't know those details. I know in the Shafi'i school, you let it curve and you keep it like that. Maybe like that until the end. Until the end of, and well, it's like a fist. Until the end, until you say Assalamu alaikum. Then we're going to mention it, it's going to say it. So the right index finger is raised while being slightly bent downwards when one reaches the phrase in the tashahhud, illallah. The index finger is kept raised until the end of the prayer. One does not look beyond where the index finger points once raised. That's another sunnah, is when once you raise it, and the sunnah, the three things together is the heart, and having in the heart the meaning of La ilaha illallah and Tawheed, and then saying it with the tongue, illallah, and then raising the finger. And then once the finger is raised, you just look to where it's pointing. Okay, so you're no longer looking at your place of sujood, now you're looking at where the finger is pointing. And like as if you're looking at the edge of it. The position of the right thumb, the best is to press the thumb against the index finger, slightly underneath it. One may also keep the thumb and index finger side by side. I don't know how to do that now. Or place the thumb over the middle finger in a fist. I don't know how to do that. Or press the tips of the thumb and middle finger together, or place the nail of the middle finger between the two sections of the inside of the thumb. So kind of like a ring. I've never done that one either. I've only done the fist one. That's the one I know. Now for the most complete tashahhud, and it is known, most people know it. That's what has to be said. In the last sitting, there's a minimum of it. There's the most complete one, which is sunnah. Then there's the minimum salah upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then there is the most complete as-salatul ibrahimiyya. So in the first tashahhud, which is sunnah itself, one does not make the salah on the ad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, and then he gets up for the third rak'ah. He doesn't say wa ala ali Muhammad. Then a dua for a religious matter or a dunya matter after the salah upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and before the salam. And of course the narrated dhikrs are the ones that are most rewardable to say. Allahumma ighfir li ma qaddamtu wa ma akhartu wa ma asrartu wa ma a'lamtu وَمَا أَسْرَفْتُ وَمَا أَنْتَ أَعْلَمُ بِهِ مِنِّي أَنْتَ الْمُقَدِّمُ وَأَنْتَ الْمُؤَخِّرُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. Also, the sunnah to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min azab al-qabr wa min azab al-nar wa min fitnati al-mahya wal-mamat وَمِن فِتْنَةِ الْمَسِيحِ الدَّجَّالِ. Also to say, اللهم إني ظلمت نفسي ظلما كثيرا ولا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت فاغفر لي مغفرة من عندك وارحمني إنك أنت الغفور الرحيم. For the Imam, remember there's different things for the Imam. The Imam does not make dua more than the amount of saying the tashahhud and salam on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Making dua for less than that amount is the best, and there is no harm in making dua for a little bit more than that amount. Then, for the closing salam, the most complete is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah twice, once while turning the head to the right and once while turning the head to the left. So to say that, yani, once and then once to the left, and so the turning of the head also, you start the salam while facing the qibla, so you say Assalamu alaikum, then begin to turn the head to the right during the salam until the right cheek can be seen by those behind, at which point you finish the salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That's the sunnah way. The Imam and the one who's praying alone intend the salam on whoever he turns to from among the angels and Muslim humans and jinn. That's his intention when he's saying Assalamu alaikum. For the Imam and the one who's praying alone. For the Imam, there's people behind him. There's Muslims behind him. For the Muslim praying alone, among the angels and Muslim jinn. One intends the salam on those to the right when facing the right, and those to the left when facing the left. One also intends the salam on those behind him and those in front of him with any of the two salams, and with the first is better. The follower intends the return of the salam to those who made salam on him, such as the Imam or other followers. So the follower intends to return the salam to the person on his left and with his second salam, and intends the salam on the person to his right with the first salam. And he intends to return the salam on the person to his right with the first salam. He also intends to return the salam to those in front of him and in back of him with either of the two salams. So, but it's better with the first.
So you say Assalamu alaikum?
Yes. Because Assalamu alaikum, a reply to the salam. Can be a reply to the salam. The salam of the follower begins his salam after the Imam has finished from his two salams. It's Assalamu alaikum is like wa alaikum assalam is like inverted. Assalamu alaikum is assalam first and then alaikum, and then the reply is wa alaikum assalam, yani first alaikum and then assalam. The follower begins his salam after the Imam has finished from his two salams. That's also another sunnah that I feel like many people, they miss out on. They start saying Assalamu alaikum after the Imam says the first one, which is, you can, but it's sunnah to wait until the second salam. And until he completely finishes. So he says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Then the follower says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
So on the first, when he's first passing the salam, that's when he makes his intention to return the salam to the Imam, and that's it.
The Imam or the one listens in front of him or behind him.
But they would do it at the same time as he would, so how does that work?
Let's see, here he says, so the follower intends to return the salam to the person on his left with his second salam, so that would be for the person on the left, and intends the salam on the person to his right with the first salam. So in the first one he's starting it, and the second one he's returning it.
Because you said it was sunnah on the first.
Yeah.
On the
Because
first one, he would start it.
yeah, so he's saying salam to them,
The second one, he would intend.
returning the salam to the ones on his left. But he's praying by himself?
No, when he's praying congregation.
Okay.
And in the second salam, he would make a dual intention to return the salam and to also pass the salam to the humans, angels, and jinn on the left.
Well, here he says for the second salam, he intends to return the salam to the people on the left. So he says here, so the follower intends to return the salam to the person on his left
Okay, so that is
with his second salam.
Wait, return on the. Okay.
There's two salams. There's the first one and then the second one. So for the second one, he intends to return the salam to the people on his left.
He would not be giving his salam.
No, his intention would be to return. And for the people on his right, he intends the salam on the person on his right.
Because previously you said he would make his intention to give his salam to the angels or the jinn.
When he's praying alone.
He's
No.
praying alone.
Mm-hmm.
So then he would make it to the humans, or the angels and the jinn, and then
No.
the angels.
So again he said, so the follower intends to return the salam to the person on his left with his second salam, and intends the salam on the person to his right with the first salam. So that might have misread it for the first one. He also intends to return the salam to those in front of him and in back of him with either of the two salams. And so like we said, he begins the salam after the imam has finished his two salams. Then he makes the intention to leave the prayer in the first salam. That's for the sunnah. He's not obligated to. Then after the prayer, to make dhikr and dua in a low voice, such as La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahu al-mulk wa lahu al-hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allahumma la mani'a lima a'tayta wa la mu'tiya lima mana'at. وَلَا يَنْفَعُ ذَا الْجَدِّ مِنْكَ الْجَدِّ. To say Subhanallah 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Allahu Akbar 33 times, and La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, lahu al-mulk wa lahu al-hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, one time. So 33, 33, 33, and then that long one time. Then to say Astaghfirullah 3 times, اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. So he would say Astaghfirullah, 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 and then he would say اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. If the imam stays to make dua or dhikr after the prayer, then it is better to turn his right side to those behind him and his left to the mihrab. So the imam doesn't stay with his back towards the people behind him. So, and there's more sunnah to mention. We said we were going to mention some of them. Maybe we'll save them for the next class. And there's just some overview sunnah, some like other things related to the depth of the prayer. But this is all like the practical things for now, like the dhikrs and the movements and the positioning of the hands. Other sunnah which we're going to touch on more in depth is having khushu', which khushu' can be defined as being present, fully present in the prayer. We're going to talk more about that, presence. Because there is a special mercy that descends to the Muslim when he's praying. Thinking about the meanings of the verses recited, that's another definition of khushu', to be aware of what you're saying and to like really understand what you're saying. Contemplating the meanings of the dhikr that said, keeping one's gaze on the place of sujood, except for when one raises the index finger in the tashahhud, so at that point he will switch over to the tip of his index finger, but while he's standing, while he's holding, and he keeps his back straight, but his neck kind of slightly bent down, looking at where his forehead would land when he makes sujood. Entering the prayer with eagerness and zeal, like wanting to pray. Clearing one's heart from being occupied with worldly distractions, so you're not thinking about your wife, you're not thinking about your money, you're not thinking about your children, you're not thinking about your job, your work, you're thinking about only the prayer, and what you're doing the prayer. Using a barrier by praying in front of or placing in front of you something that is at least 2/3 of a cubit, approximately 1 foot tall, and not more than 3 cubits, approximately 4.5 feet away from you. We're going to go in detail for that, mentioning like what is valid and what is perfection, and what you can use. Moving to a different spot if another prayer is to be performed, to increase the location that will testify for the person on Judgment Day. If you're like, let's say, on a road trip or traveling, you try to pray in places that you most likely will never see again. So that place will testify for you on Judgment Day. But in places that you frequent, let's say you prayed in the musalla and you finish the congregational prayer, and you finish the dhikr, and you finish the dua, and you make supplication to Allah, then you move to a different place. So if you want to pray like they say, 2 sunnah after Isha, when you stand up, you move over, and then you pray the 2 sunnah. There, that's sunnah to do, and to change your spot. Praying the optional prayers at home before or after the obligatory prayers in the masjid or place of jama'ah, except for the optional prayers before the Jumu'ah prayers. So it's sunnah, and we're going to talk about those sunnah prayers too, because I believe that's important. And actually, there is a specific judgment related to being trustworthy in testimony in the Shafi'i school, related to the sunnah prayers that are attached to the obligatory prayers. But when a person prays those, like for example, it's sunnah to pray 2 rak'ahs before dhuhr, 2 rak'ahs after dhuhr. So where do you pray them? At home, before you come to the masjid. And we said we're going to mention the masjid more in detail. Here it's mentioning just offhand. Except for the Jumu'ah, you pray those there. For the men to wait for the women to exit the place of jama'ah before exiting themselves. So the men wait until the women exit, and then they exit. To get up from the place of prayer towards the direction one needs to go, and if no direction is needed, then to the right. So once the person finished praying, he finished doing his dua, he finished doing the dhikr, now he wants to get up, and tend to his affairs. So let's say he needs to go out of the building, so he gets up in the direction where he exits the building. It's sunnah to do that. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. And for the next class, inshallah, we're going to go more in depth on the khushu', being present in the prayer, and having the feeling of reverence, fear of reverence for Allah, and thinking about what you're saying. And we're going to mention some of the other sunnahs that are related to outside of the prayer, which make the prayer perfect and increases the degree of perfection of the prayer, like the adhan, like the iqamah, certain dua that is made after the adhan, before the iqamah, certain dua that's made at the iqamah, that's also important. And we mentioned the dress, then we'll also mention, inshallah, the certain surahs that are sunnah to recite. Let's say for Maghrib, then for Isha, for Fajr, and then that'll be it. And it won't take like a whole entire class. We'll start the new subject matter, inshallah, at that class. And we'll mention those last things that are left of the sunnah, or for the perfection of the prayer, and then we'll go into the new material. Do we mention it? We'll keep it a surprise. A surprise for the new material. You want to know what it is? I'll give you a hint. It starts with the name of the material starts with the. And then the second word, or the second part of the title is a number. number. A number that if you times 10, somebody said in the chat, somebody said 40, that would be correct. So then we got two words now. So 40. And now we have the third word. Nawawi. So that, my intention with that is for the connection of the chain. The terms will be narrated. Those who have, let's say, hard copies or something where they can put the inflections so that they'll have that narration, they'll have that chain, and hopefully it'll be 15 people, a 15-person chain, and me being the 15th. So there would be the 16, which is it's a short chain, relatively short chain. And then maybe at the end we'll mention the chain. We'll mention the terms in Arabic just for the narration, for the connection, for connecting the chain, and brief explanation. Maybe for certain hadith we'll do a deep dive, but brief explanation. We don't want to... Any questions before concluding? Just type it in the chat.